Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherie Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hi, and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherie.
And I'm David.
And we're doing our last episode on narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. And we've covered lots and lots of information, and we've even talked a little bit about what to do if you suspect you might be in a relationship with someone that is. So we want to just talk a little bit more about some specific techniques that you can use in your interactions with people who have NPD. So the first thing that we want to talk about is an acronym. And
we love acronyms.
Yes.
Easy to remember.
Yep.
And it actually fits for a couple of reasons, I think.
Okay. So our acronym is BIFF. And this is I think this is what David's referring to. Tell him what you're referring to when we were talking about it.
Well, BIFF, B-I-F-F, right? For most of you, I don't know.
If you're old enough.
We're older, so this is probably not super relevant. But Biff, the only character I have ever known that's Biff is Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
The bad guy. And he definitely fits.
He definitely has some tendencies.
Yeah, very self-absorbed and very so. The technique, I think, is fitting if we think of Biff and Back to the Future.
There you go. There you go. So this comes from a book with that title, Biff, by Bill Eddy, and he actually has several of them that go through. There's a general one, general book that kind of covers generally how you interact with these types of people, but then he also has one around like co-parenting or Biff at work, or these different other specifics.
The same.
Yes.
Okay.
They're all, and so if you look, you can look them up on Amazon. The general one is red and black, and then I think the co-parenting one is like green and black, and the work one is blue and black, but it's all Biff. Okay. And he just goes into specifics about how to deal with, these types of situations in very specific detail rather than sort of generally. Okay. So if you get the general book, he's going to have examples from all these different categories, and gives you opportunities to read about it and then practice writing out or coming up with a BIFF response to a situation that's arising, and then he'll give you, this is how I would do it. So you have a lot of, you're getting a lot of feedback, which is great.
There's a lot of help there if you want more.
Yes, absolutely. I highly recommend it. It's a really great resource, and it's not very expensive. They're thin little books. It's like $11-12 or something like that.
So they're not a full-on academic read.
Yes.
This is more like a study guide or help.
Yes,
guide.
yes. Okay. And then here we go. We'll explain it, the concept. Now you practice it. Now look at this one and compare it to what you did and see where, you could do a little bit better. So I really recommend that. So now that we've, put a huge plug for stuff, we should get some kind of kickback on that, right? But let's talk about what it is. So BIFF is the acronym, and it stands for, drumroll,
BIFF, brief, informative, friendly, and firm, which isn't going to be unfamiliar if you've been listening to the podcast anyway, when we talk about how to communicate well.
Any extra information they're just going to
sadly
use against you, unfortunately. Which is, you can't really have a conversation about, well, we could do this, or could you work with me on this? Because if you're saying too much of that, or you're providing enough information, then they're going to come up with all the reasons why well, you really should be doing all of it because this and this, and I can explain to you the reasons, why. So keep it brief. You want to be as short as possible. But the next one, informative, is really important because you need to provide the facts. You need to provide what's available and not get off into a lot of weeds, or not really provide what's going to be useful to actually resolve the situation, right? Sometimes we can get like that, especially if you're heightened, right? Or flooded. You can really start, sharing a lot of things and
unfortunately, again,
not providing the facts.
This isn't a normal kind of conversation where it'll be received maybe in the spirit it's given, but it could be used, and so you just have to be careful.
Yes.
And so, informative.
Basic facts, but they're brief basic facts. So you're just giving the basic information only. You're not explaining yourself. Never, ever, ever explain yourself. Because they will always use that to then turn it back on you and explain away your explanation.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Or, well, I can explain to you why that isn't actually a thing. So the more reasons you give, the more explanations you give, the more ways that they have to turn it back on you and make it your fault, or that you should be the one doing this instead of them showing up in the way they need to. So, and that's one of the reasons why we do brief, is because you don't want those long conversations. The longer the conversation goes, the more information you're going to end up sharing. And so they really want that. A lot of times they'll really kind of try to pull some of that out of you. Because then they're, well, no, just tell me why not. Just tell me why not.
And you think that it's going to help.
Yes, you think it's going to help. Well, if I just explain that I've been in bed sick for weeks, so I couldn't, Nope. It does not help. The longer that you're going, the more information you're going to share. And so the more information they have to use to twist around and use against you. So keep it facts, basic facts only, not a lot of extra information. And so you're giving them that informative stuff that they absolutely need. This is a need-to-know basis. Do you absolutely need that information? Do they need that information? Yes, you give that to them in as brief a context as possible.
I like how it starts with brief, because that sort of sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yes.
So if you can think first brief,
yes,
you're not allowed to go and go and go because it's no longer brief.
Yes. And sometimes when I'm working with clients on this, they need to write out a 3-paragraph something about it. And then it's like, okay, so what part of that is vital?
Yeah.
And then cut all of the rest out. What part of that is the basic fact that they need with no additional information, and you cut the rest out.
NPD aside, I can see the benefit in this for a lot of people just in how they communicate.
It's true.
But especially with NPD, for sure.
With NPD. And in fact, Bill actually talks about it in terms of, he talks about high conflict personalities.
Oh, yeah.
That's how he discusses these. So these techniques actually are phenomenal for not just NPD, but borderline, all these other types of high conflict types of personalities that stir up most personality disorders, or a lot of them definitely stir up the drama, histrionic,
sure.
right?
Yep.
So he doesn't differentiate there, because this is such a great technique that will work for all of them.
Right. Yep.
And, sometimes you go, well, maybe that person isn't like totally narcissistic. Well, if they're kind of running their lives in this, high conflict kind of a way, then this is going to be really
helpful
useful
anyway. Yeah.
So I really like that he calls them high conflict personalities. So the third one is be friendly, right? And that can be a little challenging, but it usually just involves something friendly or positive at the beginning. Like if you're writing an email or a text, like, hey, I hope your week's going well. And then you can give the information. So it doesn't have to be, and then you kind of end with something.
Kind of a soft startup.
Yes.
Yeah.
A soft start is a really good way to describe that. And you might throw something in at the end, like I look forward to resolving this. Something like that, where especially when you're writing, right? We talk about that a lot. Texting, emails, you lose
Which you may have to do a lot with these
yes,
situations.
we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Yes, having everything documented, everything in writing with some of these people. But again, a lot of the body language, the nonverbals that help us know the tone that someone is bringing, right? They disappear. And if you have a high conflict person, then they're going to view other people as being that way, right? Anything that they're doing or saying, they're just trying to stir up the pot, right? They're just trying to make things really awful. And so if they can take what you're saying wrong, they 100% will.
Yeah.
So if you put in those friendly pieces, it helps them to come at it from a little bit softer space. And also it's going to look better in your documentation if it has to go somewhere, right? Like if you're at work and you have this really high conflict person and they're like yelling at you over email, but your emails are concise and informative and they're friendly. Hey, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. It's just going to look a lot different.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of times in conversations, relationships like this where you're going to need to go back and say, this is what was actually said, or this is what we actually agreed to, or this is where we ended that conversation.
Yeah.
Versus whatever they might say after the fact. So
that just makes and you don't want to have the boss look at you saying, well, you're a horrible, rotten, whatever also, right? That doesn't help you.
Yeah.
And it just takes, again, it also just takes so much. This takes a lot of time and energy to practice and get down, right? But it's the energy, like we've talked about a lot. Like, where are you going to put your energy? You're going to put it on the front end to like work through the things that are going to take care of it.
Yep.
Eventually, or are you going to put it on the back end and just be constantly putting out the fires at the end? So it does take some time, but then it's going to save you so much emotional time and energy and effort because you're not writing these huge long things or getting in these hour-long conversations to try to help someone see your point of view who isn't interested in seeing your point of view, just to turn it back on you.
And they don't work anyway. You've had enough experience with those kinds of conversations where they don't pay off. It doesn't come around where they say, oh, this has helped me so much. I agree. I want to do it your way.
Yes.
You're probably not used to that.
And I know that goes back to 2 episodes ago when we were talking about what can I do if I think someone is being or has these narcissistic tendencies. What do I do? And we talked about you give them time where you're setting boundaries and you're trying in these different ways and you're watching, you're getting information. So this is a situation where you've done that and every time it just comes back to bite you and they're just not willing to participate in normal, healthy conversations with you. And so then you're like, hey, look, I've got the information that I need. Like, this does not go well. You're not willing to see my side. You're not willing to compromise or work with me. So we're just going to stick to this format.
Yep. And it'll save you so much effort and energy, right?
Yes. So the last one in the BIFF is firm.
Firm.
So, and a lot of times we see people who are taken advantage by people with NPD don't have really great boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? That can be very attractive to someone with NPD. They want someone that they can kind of push around and get them to do whatever they want. So you're going to have to work on boundaries, which we talked about, again, those 2 episodes ago, and be firm. Like, this is what's happening. I'm not up for negotiation around this.
Yeah.
Right? So again, if you're in a work environment, like, hey, I've noticed, I hope your day's going well. I noticed that this is happening and it's a problem. If you don't respond with the things that were due last week by this time, here's my time and it's a boundary.
Very clear.
Then this is what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And then you finish with, I'm so excited to, work with you and resolve this issue. Like, done, right? You've been very brief. You've been informative. You've been friendly at your beginning and end. And then you're firm about this is what's going to happen. It's not like, well, we'll have to maybe think about doing something.
Yeah,
And you might have a consequence, right? Then they're like, oh, great. I've got all the space in the world to just run right over you because I don't have any kind of consequence and I know I'm not going to get one.
Yep.
So, so you want to make sure you have that firm, this is what will happen. And that's a boundary, right? If you don't do this, then I'm going to choose to do this. I'm going to choose to report you. I'm going to choose to, whatever it is. And then there's not much for them to come back on. And they could still, right? That happens a lot. Well, you're just being ridiculous.
Well, because if they're looking for it, they're going to figure out a way.
Yeah, they're going to try.
Even if it,
even if
you are founded on anything. But
even if you are doing a BIFF response, they can come back really upset, but there's less for them to go off on because you haven't given them, well, I have to have this done by this time, so I really need you to work on this, and I have this and this coming up, so I won't be able to work on it. Well, I mean, you've just basically handed them the whole, all of these reasons why they can tell you that you're wrong and you need to be doing it their way. So they can still come back if you have that brief, informative, friendly, and firm space, but you can say, yes, I understand that that's hard for you. Nevertheless, here's the boundary again. I'm sure we'll be able to, resolve this, be friendly, and then you just go back to it. And then you follow through always, right? It's not a boundary if you're not following through. It's just a nice suggestion that can be discarded at will, right?
Suggestion probably doesn't work too well with NPD.
Right.
It's a nice suggestion.
Yep. Or any high conflict person.
Yeah.
So additionally, in addition to the brief, informative, friendly, and firm, which again, highly recommend the books, being able to get into those and practice. This is really important to run by a therapist who's familiar with high conflict personalities, that can help you with that, because again, you're not working on relationship building with these, right? You're keeping the relationship at the most, basic level. We're not trying to invest in trust and all of those kinds of things. You just kind of keep it simple. And then you can have some relationship, at least some level of relationship, right?
And you have to keep it simple to figure out where you can go from there.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. So in addition to the BIFF, a few other techniques that are super useful and kind of fit within that framework are the gray rocking. That's something I think we've mentioned before. I can't remember if we've talked about gray rocking. We haven't talked about it. Okay.
Or I've forgotten. Possible. So gray rocking.
So gray rocking is to not provide. It's like a blank face. Like a gray rock has no emotions, no affect, nothing like that. And so if you are interacting with someone with NPD or a high conflict personality, you could say that as well. Not providing any emotion is really, really useful. There's nothing for them to grab onto and twist. Right. Emotion, an emotional reaction, whether you're weepy, whether you get angry, like that all feeds them. Yeah. A lot. The kind of visual I have, if you've ever seen the first Wonder Woman movie, and the bad guy has his little like female henchman that makes all the potions or whatever. And he has this one that just, makes him a superhuman or whatever. And he breaks it open and then he inhales it. And you could just see, like, they put little, special effects where he's got like this light that like goes through his body and he's like, whoa, and he becomes all powerful. That's what I feel like emotion is for someone with NPD. Like they kind of sniff it in and they're like, oh, so it gives them all this power.
like dogs or bees that smell fear kind of thing. They can sense.
They can sort of sense it and it feeds. Yes. But it doesn't just feed them, it gives them power, right? Yeah. Like when you are showing emotion, you are demonstrating to them that they have power over you, which is one of the main tenets of NPD, right? They want the power, the control, the money, and the image, right? And so if you are feeding them with that, then they absolutely are going to continue to engage around those things. They love that. So, so gray rocking is just don't have emotion, right?
Flat affect.
Yes, flat
just
affect.
Be the facts.
Mm-hmm. And again, that fits right back into the BIFF.
BIFF. Which is the visual. You're going to be BIFF.
Yes.
You're BIFF. So
yes.
Brief, informative, friendly, firm. That's going to be how you interact.
Yes. And that informative piece, I think the gray rocking fits really well into that, because there's you just aren't, it's just facts. We're just doing facts here.
Right.
We're not sharing, the emotion. How does that make me feel? That just, it's not going to be a useful.
Well, and it fits friendly too.
Yeah.
Because you're not being mean. You're not being over the top, though. You're not being emotional and vulnerable, and you're just being fine,
This
friendly.
is how it works. Here we go.
Here it is.
We're moving forward. Yeah. So no emotion. That is a big no, unless you really want to get them excited and really involved. So
well, and it makes sense because you don't want to give emotion unless your emotion is being used well.
Yes.
It's actually
unless
serving,
it's being received well.
Right.
Yes.
It's serving to create connection or understanding.
Right.
Because it's having that sort of an impact where they listen better because you're showing emotion. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, then you shouldn't be offering it.
Yes.
It's just going to be used against you. So.
Exactly. So, and definitely not getting angry. Like if you're getting angry in front of them, which again, anger is a super important emotion and it's good to have it, but you definitely don't want to demonstrate it in front of them.
Yeah.
You want to recognize that, understand what it is, get back to your BIFF, and then go process that anger in a space where they are not, because they're not ever going to be able to receive it, work with it, and help you in that space. It's just going to be used against you.
Yep.
So another something we've kind of already said is, again, sticking to the facts. You definitely want to be sticking to the facts and not have emotion with it. Document everything is the next one. When you start getting into one of these altercations with a high conflict personality or someone with NPD, you are going to want to have everything documented.
Yeah.
Because they will want to twist things around and, I didn't really say that, or that was never an arrangement.
Right, for sure.
All of those things, and that is going to be for control. That's going to be for power. It's also going to be a lot of times for image. I wasn't like that. I never said that. I never did that. Right. Or you never said that. You never did that. And so you're going to want to be able to prove, yes, I did try to work it with you. I did email you 4 times to resolve this situation. Right. And you didn't respond, or here's the response and it's not a very kind response. You're going to want to have that. So a lot of times if it's a really big altercation, you're just going to want to take it out. Like, just don't have face-to-face or phone conversations.
Keep it to communication only.
Keep it to writing.
Written
communication only.
Written.
Yes. Written communication only, so that you have that evidence. And you might need a lot more than just your conversation. If you're dealing with a project and this or that is going wrong, you're going to want the documents to back up where they're being untruthful about things, right? So if they went into a meeting and told the boss that you didn't do X, Y, or Z, but you did, you need to be able to have the documentation to pull that up.
Yeah.
A lot of times with NPD, I think we may have mentioned before that because the power, image, money, control are the important things, that being honest is not one of those things. And so they will a lot of times become pretty adept at lies, and they don't really see them as lies. It's just more of, this is how I get what I want. Like, this is how we get to that place, A to B. And it's not going to work the normal way. So we just say whatever will get us from A to B.
Yep.
And so being able to have the background documents to support your claim then is going to be important. And again, if you're taking that to a situation where, whether it's like court or whether it's to your boss or whether it's, to someone else, again, keeping that brief, informative, friendly, and firm is going to be critical as you're engaging with the person that isn't the HCP around the HCP or NPD person. Because then you don't come off looking crazy, right? Which is, they really, really bank on that idea. They're going to poke and poke and poke and twist and lie and twist and lie so that you explode, and then they like back off and they start pointing fingers. Look at how crazy this person is.
You're the target.
Look at how like over the top they're being. I'm just trying to resolve the situation and they are freaking out, right? That's the reason you don't gray. That's the reason you gray rock. That's the reason you don't show emotion.
Yep.
And so when you're interacting with other people around situations that involve the NPD person or the high conflict personality, you also want to be brief, informative, friendly, and firm. Don't bring in any emotional argument. Don't get heightened with anger or, crying or anything like that, because it will make you look crazy, even if the NPD isn't there. So when you're bringing in those documents, you just go, hey, look, here's our conversation. This is what we talked about. This is how it panned out. Here's the documents he said this, or she said this, but these are the documents that demonstrate that that's not true. And so I'm just kind of giving that to you, letting you know we've got this situation and I've been unable to resolve it or whatever. So document everything. Talk with other people that you need to resolve situations with that involve the NPD, again, also with that BIFF format. And then the last one is to slow down and not get distracted.
Stay focused.
Yes.
Because you have a very clear purpose here.
Yes. That is, again, we talked about they love to take one piece of information and go in a completely different direction with it. And pretty soon you're not even talking about the issue anymore. You're having an argument about something that's completely not related or very distantly related.
Right.
And then they can get you talking about that and about this, and then show how you're wrong in all of those situations so that you never actually get down to the actual issue.
Right.
So what that might look like is slowing down. So when we say slow down, slowing down your words even.
Yeah.
Your tempo of your speech, because it disrupts the pattern that they're trying to do, which is get you so flustered and misdirect.
And that's a great way to kind of describe it, right? Is high conflict personalities. If you feed into that, you're going to get all the attention and the focus and be accused of being, the crazy person. If you intentionally can slow down, it breaks the cycle.
Yes.
And they have no choice but to react differently because you're not in the cycle with them.
Yes.
And so you don't want that target, if you can help it, on you. And we've talked a little bit about that before too. So slowing down those words. That's going to be super helpful. Not getting distracted by when they try to take it a different direction. Say, well, we can discuss that later if you would like to, but I want to finalize this first. Yep, perfect.
And then if they do it again, but that's really important. Great. Let's set a time to do that after we finish discussing this. This has everything to do with that, though. That's great. Well, we can discuss it. I'm happy to discuss that with you as soon as we finish discussing this. You see, like the words are slower and you keep bringing it back to this point.
Which again perfectly fits BIFF.
Yes.
So I like it.
Okay. Hopefully you can take those forward with you to all of your fun high conflict personality or NPD relationships.
Unfortunately, we have to learn how to do this, but I love that acronym, and it's something I can remember pretty easy. So
yes,
I hope it was helpful.
All right, that wraps up our NPD stuff. So
yay, you made it. Good job. But really, you have a lot of tools. Again, when we finish these topics, they're pretty thorough. So I hope it's empowering for you.
We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.